In the winter of 1959, 9 young explorers began a journey into the frozen mountains of the Soviet Union. They were considered some of the most experienced survival students of their time. The group was trained to endure extreme cold and dangerous expeditions. The leader of the expedition was Igor Dyatlov, a young man known for his intelligence and discipline. The mission seemed simple: cross an isolated region of the Ural Mountains and safely return home. But that journey would soon become one of the greatest mysteries in modern history. During the first days of the expedition, the group moved slowly through the deep snow. The explorers carried tents, heavy clothing, cameras, and survival equipment. Even while facing brutal winds, they appeared confident and calm. The recovered photographs show the group smiling in the middle of the frozen landscape. At that moment, nobody imagined those would become their final photographs alive. The chosen route was extremely isolated and incredibly dangerous. Massive frozen mountains surrounded the explorers from every direction. The silence of the region was broken only by the violent sound of the freezing wind. At night, the temperature could kill a person within only a few minutes. Even so, the group continued deeper into the heart of the mountain. Local villagers had avoided certain areas of that region for many years. Some believed strange things happened in those mountains during winter. There were old reports involving mysterious lights and unexplained sounds. But the explorers ignored the warnings and continued the expedition. As the days passed, the weather became even more violent and dangerous. The snowstorms grew stronger, and visibility constantly disappeared. Sometimes the explorers could barely see a few meters ahead of them. Even with the growing danger, nobody decided to turn back. The group seemed determined to finish the crossing no matter the cost. On the final day of the expedition, the weather changed dramatically. Powerful winds erased nearly every trace left behind in the snow. Darkness quickly began swallowing the frozen landscape around them. Decided to set up camp on the side of the mountain. That decision still confuses investigators even today. The location was extremely exposed to violent wind and deadly cold. Even with all their experience, they chose to remain there that night. The final photographs show the group setting up the tent in the middle of the storm. Everything appeared relatively normal only hours before the tragedy. But during the night, something terrifying happened inside that camp. Something caused the entire group to fall into complete panic. Investigators later discovered the tent had been cut open from the inside. It looked as if everyone was desperately trying to escape at the same time. The most frightening detail was that they abandoned almost all survival equipment. Boots, heavy coats, food, and tools were left behind inside the tent. Some explorers fled nearly barefoot into the deadly frozen darkness. No rational person would do that without facing extreme terror. The footprints found in the snow revealed something even more disturbing. The tracks showed the group walking calmly away from the camp. There were no signs of chaotic running or violent struggle. That meant the explorers were still conscious while leaving the tent. But then what could have frightened them so badly? Weeks later, rescue teams began discovering the first bodies. The first 2 explorers were found beside a small improvised fire. It appeared they had tried to survive the brutal cold for several hours. Their hands showed severe burns and horrifying injuries. Some fingers had been destroyed by the cold and desperation. Investigators believe they desperately climbed frozen trees, trying to survive. Other bodies were discovered scattered across the frozen mountain. Some appeared to be slowly attempting to return to the tent before dying. The extreme cold had completely frozen the bodies found in the region. But the true horror had not yet been discovered. Months later, the final bodies were uncovered beneath deep layers of snow. That was the moment the case became even more terrifying. Several victims showed incredibly violent internal fractures. The injuries were compared to the impact of brutal car crashes. But almost no major external wounds were found on the bodies. It was as if an invisible force had crushed them from the inside. One victim was discovered without a tongue during the investigation. Others had severe injuries to the eyes and face. Those details transformed the case into a nightmare for investigators. No theory seemed capable of explaining every event from that frozen night. Soviet investigators became completely confused by the evidence. There were no clear signs of human attack anywhere near the camp. There was also no definitive evidence of an avalanche. Even so, something clearly terrified the entire group. Soon rumors involving secret Soviet experiments began spreading everywhere. Some witnesses reported strange lights appearing in the sky that night. Bright objects were allegedly seen crossing above the mountains during the storm. Those reports intensified the mystery surrounding the tragedy. Some people believed secret military weapons had been tested there. Others suspected dangerous sonic experiments hidden within the mountains. There were even theories involving unknown creatures living in the region. Ancient local legends already described strange events happening in those mountains. The native people avoided certain parts of the area for decades. Some believe the place became cursed during the harsh winters. Even decades later, the case still remains officially unsolved. Modern researchers continue trying to reconstruct the expedition's final moments. But the more details are uncovered, the stranger the mystery becomes. Many questions remain unanswered even today. Why did the explorers abandon the tent in such a horrifying way? What caused the violent internal injuries found on the victims? How did some of them survive for so long in the deadly cold? And most importantly, what truly terrified those explorers that night? Perhaps a simple explanation still hides beneath decades of theories. Or perhaps they encountered something that should never have been seen. To this day, the Dyatlov Pass incident remains one of the greatest mysteries in history. The freezing wind still crosses those empty mountains in complete silence. Snow continues covering the traces of the tragedy from 1959. And the mystery remains buried somewhere beneath the eternal ice. Many modern explorers still avoid spending the night in that region. Some visitors claim they constantly feel watched while standing there. Others report hearing strange sounds during the middle of the night. There are even people who swear they saw mysterious lights crossing the frozen sky. Despite decades of investigation, no definitive answer has ever been found. Perhaps the true secret of Dyatlov Pass will never be discovered. And perhaps that mountain is still hiding something terrifying beneath the ice forever.